In the heart of Russia is Yekaterinburg, the country's fourth biggest city, and at its center is an astonishing sight.
You see this very tall, grey concrete structure towering over the rest of the city, and it's very, very distinct because of its immense height.
What strikes you about it is just impossibly thin and tall. It's hard to believe that something that seems that delicate could actually stand up and not be at risk of falling down.
At 720 feet tall, it dominates the skyline.
Giant towers appeal to the wonder in all of us. Ever since man has been building things, there's always been a contest to see who can build the highest.
It's hard to believe it didn't have some kind of symbolic intent behind it.
Now, graffiti scars its walls. The concrete is crumbling, and a gaping black hole hints that something very terrible once happened here. And to the locals, it has a sinister reputation.
Most of the people in the city refer to the tower as being a kind of abandoned ghost site.
But what has happened here to make this tower so infamous? And why is it known to the people who live here as the Tower of Death? The answer lies in the Cold War battle between the West and what was then the Soviet Union during the last century.
Going back to the early days of the Soviet Union, supremacy in science and technology was vitally important to them. They wanted to prove that their system could produce better scientists, better engineering.
And that includes the race to build the world's tallest structures. By the early 1980s, the West was winning. And the Soviet Union wanted to show they were still in the game. And this was their answer: Yekaterinburg's television tower. Propaganda was essential to spreading the socialist message, and television its most important medium.
TV is an enormously effective way to communicate. If you control the 3 or 4 TV channels that are available in your country, you really dominate the conversation.
At almost 1,200 feet high, the television tower would be the tallest in Europe, according to engineer Daniel Krisky.
It was to consist of 2 main parts, a 720-foot reinforced concrete column, and above that, a 460-foot metal antenna.
This impressive tower would have television studios and a revolving restaurant at the top and be visible for miles. But with the risks involved in building such a high tower, how did it finally fall? Out in the heart of Russia is Yekaterinburg's television tower. At 720 feet tall, it is the tallest structure for miles around, and its construction faced many challenges.
You would need to build some scaffolding tower in the right shape. You would have had to build what we call formwork, which is bits of timber that are shaped, and it's the mold within which the concrete is poured. So you need to be agile and thinking about the design of the tower in different portions of it because it was so very tall.
And for the men who helped to build it, there was always the potential for danger and disaster.
They poured rings of concrete one on top of each other, gradually working their way up. Each tier would be about 2.5 meters high, and they would have to let one begin to cure and then build the next one on top of it and gradually work their way up as they went. But you can imagine as they got high, the challenge of moving all that liquid concrete up to this enormously tall structure must have been formidable.
Even when there was a shortage of building materials and extreme cold weather, it didn't stop production.
It wasn't just a tower designed to broadcast propaganda, but the tower itself was intended to be a form of propaganda, an actual physical landmark that represented the superiority of the Soviet system.
But when so much was invested in the tower, what has happened to cause such devastation? Could there have been a construction accident? Could it be connected to the volatile political situation in the Soviet Union in the early 1990s? Or could the tower have been the victim of a terrorist attack?
So they worked on it for 8 years. They still only got about 2/3 of it done. And the money ran out and the society was no longer able to function in a way to build this kind of project.
A symbol of Soviet prestige was now a stark reminder of its failure. But if the local authorities simply ran out of money, why was it known as the Tower of Death? Shortly after construction ground to a halt, the tower took on a completely unexpected role, and one that would have fatal consequences.
The tower became this magnet for young people to gather and express themselves. People climbed it over and over again. There was sort of a nonstop party up at the top, and then some daredevils started climbing it blindfolded. And of course, there were accidents, and one young man died. Others climbed the tower as a way to commit suicide in a very dramatic fashion.
The television tower had now become the Tower of Death, and it was barricaded up so that no one would ever die here again. On March 24th, 2018, the local authority decided to demolish Yekaterinburg's most striking landmark. Now, there is nothing left of the tower that once dominated the city's skyline. In its place, they are building an ice rink.
I can understand why the tower was such a landmark and sort of beloved by some people in the city. On the other hand, I don't think anyone wants the symbol of their city to be something that was a colossal failure, a white elephant.